Chapter 12. The First Frontier. Skylar recognized the dream, the same one he'd escaped only hours before. The sky enclosed him like a many-colored canopy painted with rivers of glittering treasure. Hundreds of king stars hung in the expanse like toys suspended on strings above a baby's crib. And perhaps Skylar only noticed because this time he knew he was dreaming. But the infinite range of stars, for all its visual commotion, never made a peep. Back home, the priests had claimed the stars could talk, and Skylar had long fancied they rang like tiny golden bells as they twinkled. Yet now, as he floated among and between them, nothing. How did I get back here? He'd woken up from that last dream. Could he do it again? He tried forcing his eyelids open, willing the starry backdrop to split apart and reveal the campsite where the knights still guarded him. All he got for his trouble was a small headache. Drinking in the starlight, Skylar shared the silence with a dozen perplexing ideas knocking on his skull. This place didn't feel like a dream. He felt slow, as if he'd already been asleep for ages and had only now woken up. It's a feeling we're all familiar with. The reboot feeling. You know, the one that follows you around after stumbling out of bed, keeping you in a fog while your brain powers up and refusing to leave until you've eaten your pepperoni scrambled eggs. Somehow, without any scrambled eggs, Skylar managed to snap back to awareness. He remembered how the last dream had ended, with him waking up beneath the forbidden mound and walking through the ashes of his hometown. Since he'd come back here, did that mean he was about to relive that awful night from the beginning? He couldn't let that happen. Careful not to turn his head, he glanced around, desperately seeking the way out of heaven. The more he spied his surroundings, the more he felt crushed by them. The open mouth of the cosmos seemed as if it could snap shut at any moment, and Skylar felt bizarrely claustrophobic as he floated through a world without walls. Again, his arms had been welded to his sides, and, panicking, he thrashed against the cosmos, trying to crack its shell. That sent him spinning. Chirping! No, not this again. Chirpong! Huh? Skylar thought. He'd forgotten about the chimes, having heard them just once in the last dream. Aside from his own voice, they were the only sound in the universe. And, as before, they sounded before and after his utterance, like some kind of audible punctuation. Except Skylar couldn't make that comparison because punctuation hadn't been invented yet. Chirping! I hate this! Let me out! Please! Chirpong! The starscape blurred around him. Pinpoint lights stretched into long coils, wrapping around his body like a straitjacket. Skylar bucked and heaved, trying to free his limbs, but only accelerating his spin. Had the knights lied about not tying him up? Were they dogpiling him again, pinning him down in his sleep? Would they wake him if they saw how he struggled? In such a large and crowded cosmos, surely someone could see how frightened he was. Help! He screamed, chirps leading and following the word. I can't do this again. I can't watch Jim's house burn a second time. He wanted to cry, but his eyes wouldn't close. They were tied down like the rest of him as he wheeled through the void. A deaf universe ignored Skylar's pleas. Even when he stopped fighting it, when he went limp, the whirling madness refused to let up. He'd been beaten and was now trapped forever in the spiral prison of his own momentum. Having nothing better to do, he died a little, just to see if that would improve anything. And, in time, he was too exhausted to notice whether that had worked. Excuse me? Someone said. Skylar didn't respond. He couldn't recognize words anymore. Excuse me? Someone said louder. Did you say you needed help? Like a shot of pepperoni scrambled eggs straight to his brain, an idea snapped Skylar out of his daze. He could have sworn he'd heard a voice, but that was ridiculous. He was a billion miles from anywhere. Who else in all of creation was stupid enough to get this lost? Chirping! Who's there? Chirpong! Here, allow me to straighten you out. Something brushed Skylar, like a hand striking his shoulder each time he spun around to meet it, and it bled speed off him with each strike. The centrifuge of stars slowed. The lukewarm swirl of lights divided into a baking blaze and a tingling chill, circling Skylar like sharks until he came to a stop between them, his back toasting while the rest of him shivered. This hadn't happened in the last dream. This was new, and whatever else might happen now, it appeared he wasn't alone anymore. "Don't try to move," the newcomer commanded, then muttered, "Since it's obvious you don't know how." Skylar opened his mouth to speak. Chirping! He held it open, waiting for the closing chime. After a minute of listening to his own open-mouthed breathing, he understood that the chime was waiting for him. So he spoke.
"How did I get here? How do I get out?"
Chirpong! Sounded the chime after he finished speaking. Skylar still wasn't sure, but it appeared as if those noises came from his body, somehow. The voice hummed for a heartbeat before saying, "Why would you assume there's a way out of here? There is no out of here. That's what here is." Skylar dangled for a moment, considering that.
"Do you mean I'm outside of everything?"
The chimes were strange enough, but Skylar's voice also sounded oddly filtered, as if the sound had been trapped inside a box. "In fairness," said the faceless newcomer, "everything is also outside of you. You could say it's the ultimate freedom, this space between the stars. There is no place you can't go, so long as you can fly straight." Who was this? Could it be the same voice that had cornered Skylar inside the ancestors' mound? Had that man followed him here? No, this was someone new. This newcomer sounded safe, kinder than the shadowed man under the hill. He spoke warmly like the shepherds in Curon village. Skylar almost called the stranger grandfather, but stopped himself before taking such liberty.
"Who am I talking to?"
the boy asked. "Here, let me bring you around." A series of slow pushes turned Skylar, forcing him to lie flat on his belly with his chin sticking out, a position he found strangely comfortable. As the sky rolled across his vision, light filled it. The heat lifted off Skylar's back. Pivoting away from the night, he discovered a dawn that eclipsed the rest of the universe, trapped in a globe bigger than 1,000,000 Earths. Chirping!
"Whoa, you're a star!"
Chirpong! "Well, aren't you clever?" the star said with an audible grin, though his face remained a blank wall of unreadable light. "Why, may I ask, is it such a big deal?" Skylar's eyes bugged. They should have blistered with pain staring at such a furnace, but he found himself unable to blink.
"I've certainly never talked to a star before. I was told I shouldn't try."
Actually, he'd been told it was impossible. Maximilian claimed the language of the stars took years to learn, and he refused to teach it to anyone except his apprentices. Yet Skylar had no trouble understanding this one. "Ah, you were warned about us. It's true, we never actually stopped talking. Having survived a handful of 1,000,000-year rambles myself, I can understand the wisdom in not getting us started, but I'll try to keep this meeting reasonably short." Skylar faced the warm half of the sky now. He could feel his shoulders glowing with heat. On either side of him, all the universe held still, and Skylar admired the unmeasurably long smudges of color pluming across the canvas of the cosmos. He thought his arms might come undone as he relaxed, but had no such luck.
"Thank you,"
Skylar said with as much of a bow as his stiff back allowed.
"for stopping my spin."
Then hungrily asked,
"How did you do that?"
"Gravity," the star replied with a spoken shrug.
"And that is?"
The star mulled that question, shifting his glow up and to the left like an eyeball trying to remember something. "I suppose it's a kind of love."
"Love?"
Skylar asked, incredulous. I mean, it ought to be. It brings things together and keeps them close. If that doesn't describe love, then nothing else in the universe makes sense. You understand, right? Someone must love you. Skylar's face fell. The chimes surrounding his voice sounded too energetic for the words he had to say.
Someone did, for the longest time.
He hung his head.
But they're all gone now, all at once, and I couldn't stop it. I have no one to love me anymore.
And it hit him just how alone he would be, now and ever after. The star fidgeted with his corona. Oh, I don't think it's as bad as all that. I mean, it's a shame you got separated from your family, and I would guess they are very far from here, but you can still catch up to them. I imagine they'll be delighted to see you.
They won't be delighted. They won't be anything.
Skylar sulked, not knowing which way to droop in the directionless void.
They died.
Unable to blink, he stared into the heart of the star, where the light shined brightest. For the first time, he noticed patterns in the brilliance, whirlpools of starfire spinning rivers around their rims, loops of red energy fountained from the stellar surface like spraying blood, only to crash back to the star's skin and merge with the current. There was so much going on. Skylar had always believed the stars were solid things, like copper tacks pressed into the plaster of the sky. He couldn't believe what a torrid mess this one was, jettisoning hot gas at every opportunity, like Smelly Irwin after one of his nothing-but-beans suppers. And I'm having the hardest time describing the feelings of someone staring at pure science when he didn't know what science was. Skylar didn't have words for plasma, or solar system, or even outer space. If you'd been drifting through the universe, you would at least have had a not entirely incorrect idea of what a universe is. Skylar didn't have that. This place was just the sky. But not any part of the sky he'd ever known. Where was the ground? Sorry for making you wait, the star said as if he had gone somewhere in the last half minute. I asked around about your situation. I told all my neighbors what you told me, and there's no polite way to ask this, so I'll be blunt. Are you quite sure your family is dead? Was Skylar sure?
Everyone was wiped out. My entire people.
But you didn't see them die. Skylar hesitated, not wanting to take back anything he'd said or sound like a liar.
No, I guess not.
His closing chirp sounded embarrassed. Fountains of flame broke out across the star's surface as he sighed with relief. Then I've got good news. Every star in heaven agrees. Your family is alive. We found them. Skylar straightened. Hogtied as he was, he managed to shimmy forward a few light seconds without spinning himself.
Alive? Which way did they go?
He leaned and nearly lost his balance before the star caught and corrected him with gravitational hands. It was a stupid thing to hope for. Skylar knew that. Of course he'd still dream about his family. It wouldn't matter if he encountered them here, inside an illusion doomed to disappear the moment his real eyes fluttered open. But he didn't care. He hungered for the chance to say something to his mother, to hold his father's hands, to see his brother's face, even if it only happened in a dream. Couldn't he be allowed to make believe? The star took a slow breath, solemn and grim. His surface flushed dark red and the heat dimmed. I'm afraid which way they went doesn't matter if you can't move. The universe is a big place, too big to spin your way across it. And while I can't find anything wrong with you, you obviously have a hard time flying.
Can't you gravity me to them?
An apologetic tisk escaped the star. Gravity grows weaker with distance, and your people are quite distant. I'm afraid it will take a love more powerful than mine to get you to them. Skylar deflated, unable to imagine a bigger disappointment. Even in his dreams, he'd never see his family again. What a failure he must have been to deserve such a fate. And, looking back, every moment of his life confirmed it. Skylar couldn't remember a time when he'd done anything brave or helpful. He was always the one people cleaned up after, the one they constantly apologized for. Now those people had been taken away forever to teach him a lesson, and the only reason he could imagine for anyone telling his story billions of years in the future would be to give people something to point at and say, "There's a bad boy who got what he deserved. Aren't we all glad that he came to a miserable end? Don't be like him." One last hope settled on the boy as he considered how to cope with his new reality.
"Can I stay with you then?"
he asked the star.
"I don't want to go back to the place I was. And you seem pleasant enough, Mr.
The star's radiance rippled, almost like he was chuckling. "Call me Uruana, and you may stay as long as you like, little Pazuzu." Skylar nodded, grateful. Maximilian had never mentioned how gracious the stars could be. Despite Uruana's claim that the two of them were outside of everything, it felt to Skylar as if he rested under the old man's roof, warmed by his hearth, cradled in the stars' immense, invisible hate.
"Pazuzu!"
Skylar exploded, twisting against his restraints.
"Why did you call me that? Where did you hear that name?"
Uruana's light held still, and he hesitated, as if unsure how to answer. Eventually, he said, "That is you, isn't it? Your name is Pazuzu."
"No,"
Skylar immediately answered.
"My name is..."
"Then why is it written on your wings?"
"It is not written on my..."
Every part of Skylar stopped dead. His heart skipped a beat. The gears of his brain ground to a halt. Even the despair of losing his family took a short vacation.
"Did you say wings?"
Skylar asked. "Yes." Uruana lifted the boy, tilting him back until the star stared at Skylar's chest. "That's where the call sign is typically printed, and as usual the serial number is etched into the bottom of your fuselage. You are a..." The star squinted. "Chi series, long-distance fighter class with the weapons upgrade. Oh yes, you are a magnificent piece of hardware. The First Fleet will want you back for sure."
"What on earth are you talking about? I'm just a boy. I don't have wings or any of that other stuff."
"We are not on any Earth," Uruana replied, wheeling the boy forward again until his nose pointed at the star. "And you are no boy. Here, I'll show you." A ripple of gravity passed under Skylar and reached for something outside the lad's vision. Uruana reeled in an object Skylar recognized as a gigantic ice chunk. You would call it a comet, though it moved too slowly to form a tail. As the ice floated up to Skylar, Uruana released a hot, full-throated breath burst on the ice. Half the comet vanished, vaporized into a shining mist by the old-timer's breath. What remained was a glassy, wet surface so polished it reflected the universe like a mirror. And there, in the center of heaven's reflection, the place where Skylar should have seen himself, he instead saw something he'd been certain he would never see again. The strange arrowhead from the mosaic in the ancestors' mound. And though he would never have believed it before this moment, Skylar understood what the image meant. He was that arrowhead.
"What am I?"
he asked, utterly bewildered. Uruana's warmth engulfed the child. He spoke gently. "You, little Pazuzu, are a starship."
In the quiet of the night, underneath the stars so bright, whispers of a love so true, painting dreams of me and you. And I'll hold you close in this moment so divine. Whispers of the night will forever intertwine. With each gentle breath we take, our hearts dance never to break. As the moonlight softly gleams, we chase away our sweetest dreams. And I'll hold you close in this moment so divine. Whispers of the night will forever intertwine.
What do you think of that? I won't let a single one get away. You'll try to save a few, I know, but this time you won't. This time I won't turn a blind eye.